the doorways had been built to the average height of a man back in the 1850s, and that was about 5'6", 5'7", something like that. This is the chapel over here. The chapel was created in 1978. In fact, come and have a look if you like, just watch the head height.
They've taken all the seats out.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're part of the congregation now.
You can tell we've done a tour there recently.
Obviously, yes. You've done a tour.
We did the ghost tour.
But our guide actually didn't turn up, so two of the others that were meant to be sort of helping took over.
Right.
So. Yeah.
Did you get any activity?
Twice. We're going back again tonight.
Did you get any activity?
Yeah, in the kitchen downstairs,
Yeah.
where they say, little boy, hold your hand.
Yeah.
I just walked in there on that pole, you know, the pole,
Yeah.
and just put my hand straight on the pole
Yeah.
for some reason. And then she's telling this story about the little boy likes to hold their hands on that pole, and I'm standing there going, oh.
Right, so we're going down to have a look at the old kitchen later on, folks. So if that doesn't have the hair standing up on the back of your necks, there. So this is the chapel. As I said, the chapel was created in 1978 by cutting a hole in the wall between what was a single cell in there and this double room, which back in the jail days used to be a warder's room. It used to be a fireplace just there, and the warders would come in here for a warm and a cup of tea, perhaps write up their reports before they went back out on duty around the jail. So they cut the hole in the wall, put the carpet down. The engineers up at Arradale built all the furnishings, and normally there are pews in here, which are now out there for the wedding, as you can see. And it was the chapel up until the place closed in 1991. The stained glass window was installed about 3 years after the chapel was created, and you'll note that that's got a Perspex screen in front of it, because if it didn't, it wouldn't have lasted very long at all, believe me. The church services used to be held out here in the main cell block, but as you can imagine, you know, the number of patients who were interested in a service as compared to the number who were not. So the services used to be disrupted apparently, you know, fairly frequently. So the patients who did want a service sort of said, look, we've got to get a chapel in this place. We've got to get a chapel. So an outside committee raised the funds because the government weren't interested in building a chapel. So an outside committee, actually headed up by Tammy Fraser, Malcolm Fraser's wife, raised the funds to build this chapel. And as I said, it was used as a chapel from 1978 to when the place closed. And the patients who came to services here actually really loved the services. There was just something about coming to a church service that they really found something special about. And the chapel was actually always full for every service. All right, we'll move along. Just watch that step on the way out. While we're here, folks, while we're here, I'd just like to point out to you that J Ward is the holder of 2 world records. We hold the world record for the oldest incarcerated person in the world. We also hold the world record for the longest serving incarcerated person in the world. So the oldest was this right here, Bill Wallace. Bill Wallace shot a man out the front of the Waterloo Cafe in King Street in Melbourne back in December 1925. This bloke had been smoking while Bill was eating. Bill didn't like that, so it led to a bit of an argument. They stepped outside to continue the discussion. When they stepped outside, Bill pulled out a gun and shot the other bloke dead. Bang, just like that. Obviously an early member of the anti-smoking establishment was Bill Wallace. There was a policeman nearby who heard the shot and came running, and he arrested Bill, which I thought was very brave of him. Bill more or less bypassed the judicial system and came straight to J Ward because he was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. He was in here for his 100th birthday, which was amazing enough in itself. And the staff here gave him a party for his 100th birthday, and they presented him with a chess set for his birthday, which is now in the museum, by the way. At the age of 103, he was transferred to the geriatric wing over at Arrowdale as a voluntary, inverted commas, patient. And he had a lot more freedom over there than he ever had here. But he never really lost the violent streak. Now, bearing in mind he's at least 103 years old, he was having a meal over there one day. One of the other patients leaned across the table and said, "You don't want that bit of bread, do you, Bill?" Bill didn't say anything, but he picked his fork up and went thump and pinned the other guy's hand to the table. Much to say, "Yes, thank you very much, I do want that piece of bread, you just leave it alone." He died at the age of 107, just short of his 108th birthday. And that made him the oldest incarcerated person in the world. Also, interesting fact, he smoked like a chimney the whole time he was in jail ward and up at Arrowdale. He smoked a pipe. So don't you believe that nonsense about smoking kills. Although in the case of the young man, yeah, it did. The longest serving incarcerated person in the world was this man here, Charles Fassard. Charles Fassard was a French merchant seaman, and he must have abandoned ship in Melbourne somewhere around 1902. He worked his way down to Cranbourne, down the other side of Melbourne there, and he stole a rifle from a rabbit shooters camp down there at Cranbourne. He used that rifle to shoot a man at Sky, which is also near Cranbourne. All he wanted was this bloke's hat and his boots, so he shot him dead, took his hat, took his boots and took off. They caught up with him at Frankston. He was arrested there, and they came to the conclusion that he was of unsound mind, unfit to plead in a court of law, so he was sent here directly to jail ward. He was arrested and sent here in 1903. He died here in 1974. So he was incarcerated for 71 years, and that made him the longest serving incarcerated person in the world. And you can look up that information on the net. I've done so myself, and jail ward's right up there at the top of the list. I don't know whether we're actually proud of those records, but we've got them whether we want them or not. Now, I do want to show you some of the restraint items used here at jail ward. Let's come down this way a bit. Bring it out. So, these are some of the restraint items used here at jail ward. This is called a restraint jacket, not a straight jacket. Straight jackets are the ones where your arms are folded across your chest. And apparently if you're kept in the straight jacket for too long, it will affect the nervous system to your fingers, and your fingers would fall off. So you'll note with these, the sleeves are sewn into the pockets. And the nursing staff used to joke if their fingers fell off then it didn't matter because they just collected in the pockets. Nobody had to pick them up, just a bit of a macabre joke amongst the nursing staff. They also have these, well, we haven't got them here, they've actually gone off for repair. But we also had a pair of kick pants which went with this outfit. Now, they were trousers made out of the same material. They were sewn up the middle so that the occupant couldn't kick. And if they had a really difficult patient, they would put him in this outfit, and all he could do then, of course, is kind of shuffle along like that. As you can imagine, it was fairly difficult going to the toilet in this outfit, and they often had to be hosed out at the end of the day. And we've been told by the nursing staff, if they had a really difficult patient, they would put the wet outfit on the floor for him to put on again the next morning. And if that didn't help him see the error of his ways on a nice cold winter's morning an hour up, nothing would. I don't think that was official policy, I think it was more of a local idea. And these were restraint items used here as well. This was a restraint belt. That used to go around the waist like that, obviously, and their wrists were locked down there at waist level in those straps. And we've been told by the nursing staff that the patients became most adept at rolling and lighting a cigarette while their hands were locked down there at waist level. Now, how on earth they did that, I do not know. You try and get down there and light a cigarette with your hands locked down there at waist level, but obviously where nicotine is concerned, where there's a will, there's a way. And these gloves were put on patients to stop self-mutilation. You know, that was fairly common in here. In earlier times, they were put on patients to stop a certain nighttime activity, which we won't go into now due to the youth of the audience, because they felt that led to mental health problems. And also, they were put on patients who were a bit too fond of eye gouging during a fight. Apparently that was a bit more common than you'd really like to think in here also. In fact, this poor old bloke in the photo over here, yeah, this poor old bloke lost his eye in an eye gouging incident here at J Ward. You can see where he's lost his eye there. His name was George Leon Dew, and he was a Greek Cypriot migrant. And he was in here because he murdered a man down at Footscray who made a homosexual proposition to him. Apparently he hated that sort of thing, so he murdered this bloke, and he cut off all sorts of bits and pieces. We won't go into too much detail, but you can imagine for yourselves what he did actually cut off, including his head, I do believe. So he ended up here in J Ward. He was described by the staff here as a good old-fashioned homicidal maniac. They said there was no way he was ever going to be released from this place. He fondly imagined that he was married to Princess Margaret, Queen Elizabeth's sister. And he used to tell everyone that Queen Elizabeth is my sister-in-law and she's going to get me out of this place one day. But he felt that he had to lose the other eye before he would be able to get out of here. He was in or actually he had produced a list of people that he intended to murder first chance he got. And it was a mixture of nursing staff and other patients. And the staff here said there is no doubt that he would have ticked those names off if he got half a chance. He did actually cut someone's throat out in the exercise yard one day. Didn't actually kill him, but didn't do him much good either, believe me. He was in a fight almost every day of his life. And I think the reason was, when the other patients discovered they could fire him up by propositioning him, they used to proposition him every day just to watch him fire up. And he was in a fight, as I said, almost every day of his life. And that's how he lost his eye. In that particular fight, the other patient gouged his eye out. But I do believe that he got his own back. I understand that he bit that bloke's nose off later on. So a bit of a biblical theme here, eye for an eye, nose for a nose, tooth for a tooth, whatever. Electroconvulsive therapy was used here at J Ward. ECT came into use in 1938 and it's still used today because it is a very effective treatment for chronic depression. But these days, of course, it's done under an anaesthetic with a muscle relaxant. Back in those early days, and it was used here in the early days, they did not use an anaesthetic and they didn't use a muscle relaxant. They would just dump the mattress on the floor, put the patient on it, zap him,